back. We'll do a little intro and welcome everybody. It is Tuesday night. We're actually ready to go right on time, and I want to get started. Tonight's webinar is going to be on exactly what is it that you should be doing to prepare your controllers to be in the best shape possible whenever it comes to preparing for the season. Now, I know many of you have been in the hobby long enough and you know this, but there are going to be a number of you that are out there that are going to experience certain things whenever you open up your show and begin taking things out and setting up for your holiday show every year, especially if you're new. After year number one, everything's brand new year number one, and you busted your rear end to make it work. And then after that, everything's not new anymore, but you continually build stuff and you add things in. And in the newsletter, in the announcement today, one of the things I said was that we were going to be joined by, I have a co-host here with me, Ricky Cloutier. He is the owner and operator of CCL Controllers. We are super grateful to have you here, because if there is anybody that is a controller building expert, you are the guy that is the guy. And some of the best work that you could ever see or ask for. Ricky has done a significant amount of long-term installation, testing, modification, R&D in making some of the nicest looking controllers, and controllers that look really professional, that are easy to service. So Ricky, huge thank you for you for being here.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me there, Clyde.
So
I hope I don't I hope I meet all your expectations.
you certainly are, because so tonight was prompted, the class is prompted because I personally, and through Robert kicking me in the rear end to get started on my own setup, I was getting things unpacked and kind of sorted out, and I had the truck backed up to the garage, and I was working off the tailgate, and I was just plugging stuff into the controllers, and I wanted to test out some props before I put them out, right? And we were just putting up my house outline basically, and where the story starts is I went to grab my Genius 32 Pro controller, brand new. I got it last year. I sent it to Ricky. Ricky built me this case, okay? And when you have something brand new, you kind of expect it to be like, oh, I don't have to worry about this for a while. This is brand new. I shouldn't have to look at anything. And as I was doing my initial plugging in and powering things up, Rob was sitting there and he's like, you got no power over here. This controller's not on. And I started looking around, and I'm like, well, so I changed the extension cord because I thought that's what it was. It actually might be the outlet. I'm not sure. But one of the things that I noticed just out of the corner of my eye was this. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see this is the box, and this is the power cable coming out of the box. Now, generally, these power cables don't have a way of snapping, but they did. And if you zoom in, you can see that this is the neutral line, and it completely frayed out loud. Now, it really wasn't. And I just heard my phone go off. I'm gonna turn off that because that's gonna annoy me. There we go. But you can see that the wires are frayed there. That made it absolutely dangerous for me to plug in, and I had plugged it in. Now, whenever I got down to the nuts and bolts of it, it was a neutral line. And it literally took me an hour. I replaced the cables. You can see over here in the other picture, you can see the cables there. It's a little better. That was the neutral line. This was the other cable. So you know what? I built enough controllers. I have enough supply stuff that I could just reach into my bag of parts and get myself a brand new cable and just rerun the lines. Ricky's like, oh no, just send it to me. I'll take care of it. No worries. It took me an hour, but it's moments like this that I take for granted, because I can take action on my own issue, but where you guys out there are going to be challenged with certain things. So I generally I'm not one to beat up my controllers and throw them around and stuff, but in this instance, there's a very good case to say that I really didn't handle my controller very well. So, and I wanted to show this to you. So you can see right here is where the issue was. And all I did was I just added two brand new cables. Now, is that really that hard? No, it's really not that hard. It took me an hour, but it really opened up my eyes that some of you guys out there, and this is a brand new controller. This exact same thing can happen to you. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of start out tonight with the preface of why we're here, and that's because we want things to run. Hands up if you've ever built your own controller, or hands up if you've built your own show, and you've never had to fix anything ever. Like it's always perfect. Like no, and there's nobody's hand's going to go up because there's always a problem. But one thing that we can do is we can maintain our equipment. It's like a car. We got to change the oil. We want to check it every 5,000 miles or so. We want to make sure maybe every 2,000 miles, make sure that there's still oil on the dipstick because you never know if it's leaking out. If you know, it's the basic things of owning this different equipment. And so, what I wanted to do is I'm going to switch the cameras here, and I have on my desktop here. This is just some of the tools that Ricky might suggest that I should have, and I got a multimeter here. I got some slip lock slip action pliers there. I've got the lineman pliers here. I got a pick, some small dikes to cut the wires with, wire cutters with wire strippers on it, and screwdrivers. And every single controller that you have in your entire entourage is going to find use of pretty much anything here. Would you agree, Ricky?
Yeah, absolutely. I also suggest needle noses.
Needle nose.
Yeah,
Well,
needle nose pliers. Those are super handy to have for tightening up the connector, especially on Falcons.
so I was thinking the lineman pliers were going to work because we're actually going to demonstrate that, Ricky, because your video was fantastic on your controller builds for your kits and stuff. So and I learned that lesson very well. And so that's a good point.
Linesmen will work really anything to get on that connector.
Yeah, well, it's nice because the new connectors that controllers are being built with aren't the basic small flathead screwdriver that you crank on and the tip's so thin because it's small that it can bend. And you need it like the newer ones are full size screws. Get your needle nose pliers on them, give it a good, hold on to them and crank it down. That really does make a difference. Your video was fantastic. And that's the other reason why you're here, because you do the builds. So the first thing I want to start with, and first thing, let's see. The first thing that I'm going to do is we'll switch cameras here real quick. The first thing that I want to start with is physical inspection. And so I'm going to clean up my area here because physical inspection requires you to be able to see what's on the table. Nothing fancy here. This is a enclosure that I found on eBay many years ago. I made my own backer board for it. I'll open it up and show you. It's a very primitive build. It has
back in the day, Clyde. That's all we could do was primitive.
It was,
but no fancy backboards and fancy boxes. It was what we could put control.
You found things that you could find to make your own backer board, and you can see I utilized this for multiple builds. So this is a 6804. This is an older controller, but one of the things that you want to do is, first of all, does the controller box open and close? Number two, is there a seal on the box? Is the seal still good? And in this case, the seal is still pretty good. I don't really use this control. This might be a test controller to plug in and test things out with. But it's pretty much it's going to be a visual inspection of both the outside and the inside. So one of the things, and why I'm specifically bringing this controller up, is double check your network cables. So this network cable, if I were going to go ahead and put this out in my show this year, this would be one thing that you can see there's some cracking going on our network wire. Now, the network wire actually still tests out and it works fine. If you like to hold on to things just because they work, that's great. You can use it inside if you want, but I would not put this outside for another season, which is why this doesn't go out in the show. I don't need this out in the show anymore. But just so you know, like these cables do wear out over time. So it's important for you to double check and make sure that the boots are still good on here. Make sure that your connectors are not rusted off anymore. And you want to begin to plug these in, power them on, and do they power up? Do the power supply still run? And then actually give them a test. So the other thing, and I'm going to switch over here real quick. The other thing that I want to do is I want to show you a controller that I am very partial to. And that is my original Falcon F16V2.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to just talk about Ethernet connectors real quick while you're setting up, if you don't mind for a sec, Clyde. You probably couldn't hear me, Clyde, could you?
No, I had to take my headphones off there.
Okay. What I was saying is while you're setting up, I was going to talk about a lot of controllers now have these little guys that pass-throughs, different versions of them or whatever. And for the most part, they work really well. Now, one thing you want to look at is when you're taking controllers out is actually physically inspect I don't know where Clyde went. But anyway.
I'm spotlighting you.
Okay, so yeah, physically look at the prongs in here because I've had some over the past years where they actually get little green on them. That don't necessarily mean that they're bad. It just means you got to clean them. You can get like an electrical cleaner at like a parts store or whatever and kind of spray and just kind of clean them up a little bit. And then the other thing I always do every year is that while I'm inspecting these is I spray them with dielectric grease again because I'm not big on the big boots with all the connector thing on them. Some people like those. I don't. I just like to plug my cable in. So I always put dielectric grease in them. And if you do that, I mean, I've gotten some out there that are 5 years old that have literally sat out in the weather and they look like brand new. But I always clean them up, make sure I dielectric grease them because especially on receivers, this is where you're going to chase your tail is if you're using these to come out of a whatever controller to head to another receiver and you have like one or two of these pins that are bent or dirty. And same with your Ethernet cable you plug in, inspect all of those because I've had some of those that have a little green in between the connectors and you'll all of a sudden have a random flicker on like one channel of your 4-port receiver. So, because obviously the way these work is it's, using 2 per setting it out. So if you have 2 that are green, you could be chasing that for a while. I mean, I've chased that myself when I haven't inspected my connectors. So that's a good one. Good one to check.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because this is your basic maintenance. Sometimes you can go through some basic things like have a small, I want to call it a hobby scrub brush, one of those metal scrubbers, one of those little toothbrush type scrubbers, and you can get in there and scrub it out.
Yeah, just a little cleaning with a little bit of little like cleaner. They have different. It'll just clean the green right off and then redialect them, and you're good to go.
Right.
There's problems.
And that's I'm glad you brought it up. I did have it written down, but it was going to be a little bit later down on the list here. So this is if you are really interested in learning how to build a controller that was made back in 2015 before Ricky opened up his business. This controller that I'm about to show you is a build that I did on my original Leechburg Lights channel. and it's not the best video, we'll say. But oops, sorry to bump the microphone there. But in any event, it was really hard to build this controller. Um, One of the things I want to show you is that you really want to do an inspection on the outside of the box. And as you can see here on the side of the box, one of my cable glands here is broken. And so is that really a major issue? Well, it kind of is, especially since this sits vertically. If I were to set this up, it would lean this to where you're looking. The back end is to the right of the screen, and this leans this way. It's actually more like a kind of like a lean-to kind of controller enclosure. But the overall appearance of this inside of this controller, I'll see if I can't maneuver this. Well, I won't be able to. Won't be able to. Let me use the other camera here. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
Someone asked, do you plug the cable in and then put dielectric grease in it? No. Now I sprayed the dielectric grease. They have like a spray version, which works really well. You can get it at Home Depot. It's spray dielectric, and literally you just spray it in all your connectors. It kind of dries a little bit. They have the paste one too. That one makes a little bit more of a mess, but if you use the paste, that stuff really works. But I've had really good luck with the spray on that. And I also always use the spray on all my pigtails, which is probably on Clyde's list as well.
You're hitting the bullet points for sure. That's
Okay.
yes.
But yeah,
No, that's great.
you're going to have the same problem with pigtails, and you're going to want, and Clyde will show you here in a minute, but you want to look in your pigtails, because I mean, you have different styles. Look in the pins, because they get green too. If I mean, you just lose a rubber out in the yard when you're hooking stuff up, and one or two connectors don't have that little rubber, water's gonna get in when it rains, and then you get flicker. So I always dielectric grease them, and then if the rubber happens to fall off, generally you don't have a problem. It'll get through, and then you'll be all good. Dielectric is your friend, isn't it, Clyde?
Absolutely, especially the spray version. And
Yeah.
you do reapply it on an annual basis.
Oh
Like,
yes. Mhm.
but the nice thing is one of those canisters lasts you for like ever. Like
Yeah.
they do last, and yeah, they're not cheap. No, you're spending $15 for a spray can, or
Mhm.
maybe it's 12 or something. But overall, it's worth the investment, because you can, like, I when I do my setup, I wear my army pants that they have the cargo pockets in them, and I shove the can in my cargo pockets,
Yeah, and spray
and
it
I
in the
can
connector.
then I just grab it and reach for it anytime I'm, because you're on your hands and knees plugging stuff in on the ground.
Mhm.
So one of the things whenever you're opening up your controller and you're starting to look and see, okay, well, we did a visual inspection on the outside here. Well, I guess that's one thing we could start with. Let's have a look at everything on the controller, not just one thing, but everything. So the first thing I'm seeing here is this is a really old controller. Last year I pulled this off because there was a reason why this controller didn't get used last year, and this is another reason for tonight's class. This controller back in the day was a $260. Well, now let me back up. I would say for all of the hardware, the controller and the expansion board, I would say this was initially out of the gates $240, which was the most expensive controller you could buy at the time. Like, that was more than an Alpha Pix. That was more than you could buy a SAN device for. But the Falcons were different. This was the groundbreaking era. You could get two universes off of 48 outputs, and that was unheard of. And you could have every individual output could be its own distinct quantity. But some of the things you'll notice here on the outside of the case, here's a network switch. Now, why would I put this network switch here? Well, this is another thing that I noticed whenever I opened it up. My Velcro, sticky back Velcro, started to wear out. I mean, this controller is like 8 years old, right? This is an 8-year old build, and it certainly does need an update to it. But the reason why there is this network switch here is because the original Falcons did not come with a switch built onto the controller like the V3s do. The V3s had an in and an out so you could daisy chain. And so this was everybody's solution to being able to daisy chain from this controller onto the next one, was to buy an inexpensive 4-port switch and then have a way to plug in using the different outputs that were available thanks to the little mini switch. Now, Falcon also included this little green thing here that you can plug into the board. And this was and of course I run 5-volt power. These are 5-volt pixels that ran a 5-volt show. I ran this cable all the way across here, and that's what plugs in and powers it. So it's powered by the Falcon. And that makes this really, really nice. And this is one of the things that happened whenever we went from V2 to V3, was the elimination of not having to have this exact kind of a network switch setup inside a standalone box. Now, the other thing you're going to notice is, I mean, this is a big box. This is a really big box, right? I had to be creative with where I could mount my power supplies. I didn't have a 3D printer back in 2015. So I had to be creative. So I used a wooden backer board. Oh my gosh, everybody's screaming in pain right now. I had a network wire that I wired directly through this one hole here. This was my network wire here. I directly ran the network. It was a hardwired network. And then I had another network cable that came out, this one here. And those two were my main strain release for my network cable. Well, so here's what happened to this controller last year and why we're talking about this. If you look at the Falcon Blue board here, this daughter board that's on top here with the WizNet, my network cable here long ago died, and I refused to crimp another network cable ever again. And so what did I do? I ran my network cable through this cable gland relief here, this metal one, and I screwed it down, but it was real loose. You could pull through it. And so last year, as I was walking through the yard and I was doing my setup, I tripped over this cable, and it pulled this entire daughter board off. It bent the pins on the back side of the board, and then it pulled off this network connector here. Oh, and I don't see it. Yeah, there you go. You can see it now. And it pulled off this network cable right here, or the network jack. This is similar to what the SAN devices have, which was a WizNet. And controllers are an 8-year-old controller that works flawlessly is way more valuable than buying a brand new controller that you have to go and build and set up. So it makes sense to maintain your stuff. And I did one small stupid thing, which was I didn't make sure that this strain relief on the outside of this box, I did not make sure that it was strain relief tight enough. And so I was able this year to put this back together. I got it running. It runs. I'm going to put it back in the show to put things together in the yard. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is because after 8 years, you think I'm smart enough to know this stuff. Well, yeah, I am smart enough, but sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes accidents happen. So if we put a little bit, an ounce of prevention, so to speak, is worth a pound of cure. And this is, to me, from me to you guys, just a way for you guys to begin to kind of solve some of the problems that you have. So while we're on the outside of the box here, I want to mention that look at my old, and these are 8 years old. These the connectors look nasty, dirty. They're old. They're black, but you can still see them. You can read the numbers on them. They still work. Ricky, what's the number one problem with pigtails in controllers whenever you're out there looking at going through stuff on your show?
Generally, for me, it is actually corrosion in the ends.
Corrosion in the ends.
Yeah, but see, I also use I use like gray connectors on all my shows. So the other issue that you can have now with the new X Connect are it depends on how you store your controllers. If you get them pigtails up underneath, those nuts, when they get hot in the summer in your shed, flatten out.
So you're saying these here, these start to
they warp. I have a whole bucket of them over here because we go through them, and if I don't store them, like I have a box of pigtails out in the shed, they'll actually flatten. That's the problem with X Connect. So
to continue on with exactly what he just said, one of the things that also happens and he said this before, and he'll jump in here with this, is when you physically plug in your controllers and you begin testing them, one of the things that you really should test is make sure that your outputs
Oh,
all
that's yeah. I didn't realize we were on to the testing phase of
right. Well,
oh, I was going to talk about that
we're
now.
on. The reason I bring it up now is because you're going to start seeing some things whenever you go out to test your show. And one of the things that can happen is that you plug something in and it seems to work, and then the next thing you know, it stops working. And one of those reasons is that you get this cable out in the sun and it heats up and now it flattens out. And now it's in a completely different molded position because like Ricky said, these things will flatten out. The cables will too. That molding will flatten out a little bit.
Mhm.
And it may jiggle it so there's no connection with inside the molding here.
Yeah, and
Right?
I've seen it like where you have it up there where they actually short right where they crimp right that spot right there. They actually short right there. And I know like when we test controllers and we plug them into the lights, we actually hold the cable and kind of rotate that head just like that. And you'll see it'll kick the lights off just like that when they're bad. And then we pull them out of the controller and replace the cable. You'd be surprised how many bad
Mhm.
ones are like that.
Did the same thing on extensions.
Extensions are the same way. You'll chase your tail on an extension with the same problem.
Mhm. So I think the just because we've gone over and the reason why, like, again, this is not the prettiest controller build. This is an 8-year-old controller. This is dirt from years of sitting out in the display or being stored and so forth. Look, the paint has worn off the backer board, right? It's not as weather protected as it once was. It's not as pretty as it once was. But at the same token, these cables still work. There, the one thing though that you do want to do is you do want to check, are they still labeled? I used, believe it or not, this is Scotch tape. Of all things, I use Scotch tape. I just realized the microphone's way over there. I use Scotch tape and a label maker, which I still use the label maker. Like the label maker is the biggest tool that I use every time I'm building a controller because I label all of these outputs. Now this one here, look, this one's missing an output label. So I have no idea what that is. I need to relabel that. This one's number 2. This one's number 3. That's probably number 1. This is 4. So this is the number 1. And I'm not going to know that whenever I get out there to go start setting up. So it's important that you are, once you have done your physical inspection and you corrected any deficiencies. Another deficiency that I would say that needs to go is this SPT wire. These need to be replaced with grounded wires. Hands up if you guys use these. I mean, back in the day, like the hobby was expensive, so wherever I could save money, that was one way I saved money. So I have more cables sitting in the box over there that I'm going to switch these out for. I'm going to run another network cable in there. I'm going to put a smaller strain relief in so that I never knock this thing over again. I'm thrilled that I didn't bust up this control. I was so upset last year. This is an 8-year-old controller. It's the controller that there's the first controller build I ever did. It's lasted for years. It's never had a problem. It's like it's one of the originals. It's the beta board that David built. So there's a lot of history with this board. So it's a little sentimental, I guess you should say. But at the same time, it's still a piece of hardware. And the better I take care of it, the longer it's going to last me. So Ricky, we want to talk about we want to talk about testing controllers, right?
Hold on a second. CRC makes a electrical parts cleaner that works really well. Somebody asked what
You go. Please go ahead and I'm going to turn
yeah, I
off my.
just catch it. No, I don't have to show it. I'm just reading I'm reading the notes. Somebody asked about what cleaner to use for the corrosion on pastures. CRC makes an electrical parts cleaner that works really well, but really anything electrical parts cleaner should be sufficient. Whatever you can get. I think WD-40 might have one too. I don't remember, but CRC has one that I use with your little toothbrush or a little like a little model brush works sometimes. You get in there, clean it up a little bit, and you're good to go. And then hit it with dielectric grease.
I do need to open up chat so that I can have it here too.
Yeah.
Okay. I have switched out. Oh, there we go. I switched out controllers, and I'm moving on to testing a controller. So it's important that you test your controllers before you get them out to your show. Why would that be, Ricky? Why would you ever do you just throw your controllers out there in the show and plug everything into them, and then turn on the network and say, "Oh, why isn't it working?"
Well, I'd lie if I said I checked all my controllers because I
I-
don't. But ultimately, yes, we do check a bunch of our controllers. We just don't always check them all. And then we do the same thing, what you just said. We'll chase ourselves and be like, why did not we run through these last, mainly receivers? We chase our tail on receivers a lot. So
I check every one of my controllers 3 days after the show starts.
here comes Robert the Angel.
Yep. He was here again. He's another reason why we're doing tonight's class.
3 days after the show starts is when I test all my controllers. I know they all work. They all test good then.
So this is and you'll see Ricky's handiwork all through here. Ricky sent me a ton of, because I love building controllers. He knows that. Ricky sent me a ton of things to test with, and or not test with, but to build controllers with. My favorite boxes to build in are the CG 1500s. And I like the small version Bud boxes. Which ones are those, Ricky? The small Bud boxes, the 26s?
The 22s.
The 22s. Is the 23022? Is that what it is?
Yeah, 32022s.
Those are my favorite boxes. Matos makes a duplicate box to this. It's not the same, but it does the job.
Yeah, it's very close. It's very similar. I still have about 150 of those left.
Well, the reason why I like the originals, and you can tell specifically with this build, this is before the Falcon F48 V4 and V5 came out. When the V4 and V5 came out, you can see the exact reason why it made sense to have an onboard receiver, because having this in an enclosure with a power supply was a huge waste of an entire enclosure. It just didn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you have a power supply and get some controllers in here, or receivers, and run those directly over? So you can see here, this was the idea. I used this controller. This was my roof controller. And so I wanted to get into the testing side of things. And I lied to Robert. I said I didn't have any smart receivers that had the testers on it. And I guess I lied. Here they are. I found them. So I'm a liar. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to get into was, besides I really like this
The
enclosure.
truth will set you free.
Yes, that's why, and you're there to remind me.
Keep in mind, when you have the testers and you're using the tester buttons, the testers do not tell you if it's receiving the data correctly from the controller. All it does is tell you that it's outputting properly on the 4 outputs. Because if you have an input issue, again, corrosion on one of them connectors, a bad Ethernet cable, or anything in between, your receiver could technically be doing your RGB to your test, but when you go plug it in hot, you lose a channel. So keep that in mind.
But isn't there 4 lights on the receiver, Ricky, that lets you know if each part of the Ethernet wire is correct?
Yeah, generally, unless the light goes bad.
Well, we can light it up here, because you guys can. We're gonna light it up anyway. So,
but generally, yes, you're right, Robert. When you plug them in, they should have all 4 lights.
Unless it's corrosion.
yeah. So we got 2 receivers here. I'll just plug it in just because we're talking about it. And we can see that. Oh, look, controller doesn't want to boot up. It doesn't want to power.
You just can't have nothing nice.
That was staged. So fake. Fake news. Staged. Probably not even a real controller in there. Clyde hit his face in shame.
I just booted. I saw it. That's like golden oldie right there. What's that, like a 101 board?
Knowing Clyde, it's probably a beta.
Or
Probably
one,
doesn't
it's
confirm
probably a
right.
100 board.
Clyde has boards that he loves. has set them on a value.
Station alert.
He sends them to David to get fixed. David says, "Oh, I'm just going to send you a new one." And Clyde's like, "No, send me the broken one back too. It has my name on it."
That's different. I'd want that one back too. So what version board is that one, Clyde? We really want to know.
Well, in fixing his controller, I think it blew out his mic.
That's his headset off again. Clyde, put your headset back on.
I unplugged the headset because it was becoming. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you really need like a sound bar or something. I said, no, what version board's that?
We
So
need
this
to
is a-
support boom microphone.
So this is a 1.01.
Yeah, I knew I guessed it right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the first things, and maybe you can't see this, but one of the first things that I noticed whenever I plugged in my controller was, hey, look, it has an IP address of 0.0.0.0. Ricky, what happens to a controller whenever it gets that IP address? How does that happen? What's the resolution? What can we kind of come up with to kind of solve that? Anything?
Plug it
You,
run 5 volt.
you can plug it into your network.
I can plug it into the network. So that's what I'll do. I've got a network cable here. It's connected into the back of this computer. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in now. And oh, look, there's no network traffic coming in on the little. I don't know if you can see it or not. Yeah, there's no little lights at the network. So now what? What's the problem? Do I have a bad board? Probably.
You could.
I could, absolutely. I possibly could. But the thing is that when you get this out into your show, this is one of the reasons why you test your stuff before you put it out there. Because if I would have deployed this out in the show, I mean, I already spent an hour on this, and this is one of the reasons why I have this pick here, because I've already went through this. This is so close here to this power supply here that I have to use the pick to get the little clip.
Yeah, those are super tight.
Yeah, it is. It's just a
So I'll give everybody a pro tip. When you get Ethernet wires, there's that little dome piece that protects the clip. So like when you're pulling it through things, it doesn't get snagged. That is the first thing that you cut off.
yeah.
Yes.
First thing.
This is a brand new.
I don't care if it's brand new in a bag and you're like, Rob told me to ruin his brand new cable. You will
So
thank
there,
you later.
I do follow that advice. That's exactly.
Yeah, I hate all booted cables. Anything with a boot on them, I hate them.
But at the same
I'm a
time,
non-booted guy.
at the same token, you can't get your finger back there. The reason why I bring this up is because things are going to happen whenever you go out to your show and start throwing things out there. If you don't take the time to find out what's going on, here's a controller that you're ready to go and deploy, and you can't deploy because it just doesn't work. And you don't know I don't know what the resolution is. So this is one of those things that gets thrown back on the pile, and I deal with it after I get the show running. But this is also another reason that we have backups for our controllers. We have a secondary plan. If I'm using my F48, you're darn right, I better have another F48 or a Genius 40 board, something that is going to run my differentials, or something that's going to run my receivers that are remote out in the yard somewhere. So keep that in mind. Like that's I know we've kind of danced around and had a little bit of fun and stuff about just here's a controller setup, but also the important thing is to prepare yourself for when something like this happens. What do you do? So have a backup plan. You have to have a backup plan.
Yeah, and especially like when you're running your show too, you're gonna want to plan if something happens. We've had several times where we lose a receiver, where if you just have a fully built receiver, it's easy to flop in and out. But I have had a controller just like that one. Actually, it was an old 48, and then we lost it, and there was no good way of just replacing it because it actually had some receivers in it and stuff. And I actually took a 48 and I put tape on the back side of it so I wouldn't ground out any of the lugs. And literally in the box, I just free floated it right over top of the other controller and just unplugged everything and direct plugged it right in there, shut the box, and the show went down, but 5 minutes.
Still like that to this day.
Yeah, it may or may not still be that way.
So another thing that I wanted to bring up was just because you have controllers and you've tested your controllers doesn't mean that you ignore your receiver boxes or how they're set up or checking and upgrading those as well. You can see here, this is an old receiver box. I probably haven't used this in a year or two because I changed it. This used to be used on my roof. I probably didn't use it last year, but whenever I brought it in, packed it up and moved it down to the new place, I found, oh, hey, look, I've got these bad broken cable glands on here. It's probably a good idea that I replace these. So don't just think everything we're talking about is just controller based. You also want to check out your receiver builds. I have a number of receivers that I used to use, and if I do deploy them, I need to make sure that I have them kind of buttoned up again, so to speak. Are my cables in good shape? Did I, I don't think this is a smart one. I think this is a dumb one. So one of the first when we only had dumb receivers, I loaded up on those. What else did I want to show you? I wanted to show also, and this is one of Ricky's Genius. Actually, this was a build kit that that Ricky sent me. It wasn't meant for a Genius build, but I wanted to demonstrate whenever you are testing your controllers and you're finalizing putting things together. One of the things that you definitely want to do with pigtails, especially with controllers, is, and somebody just asked the question in chat about firmware. We're going to get to that too. One of the things that I want to talk about specifically is the quality of your connection whenever it comes to your pluggable pins, or whenever you have them here on the board. Say, for example, the Genius board here, where you have where you push the lever down and you slide the connector in, and you release the pin and it locks it in place. You always want to do, I like to call it the tug test. After you've made the connection, after you've gone in there, like I have this awesome little set of screwdrivers that I don't know how I managed to keep them all together all these years, but I haven't lost any of them. But and Ricky, oh, this is the wrong size. Ricky got me using the one an adapter so that I could use it on my little screw gun. But this is what's nice about these. What you should be doing is in your controller builds that have these green Euro pin connectors, you do want to come back in here every once in a while and give these a good little tighten. Pull them out and then tighten them up. Make sure that you crank them down just a little bit more. And the reason that you do this is to ensure that you have a good solid connection here for your voltage and your data lines. Like, how many times have you been out in your show, had an issue with your controller and or with a prop, and it intermittently works and then it doesn't, and you go back and you jiggle the connector on the controller and you're like, oh, it's working, and then 10 minutes later it stops working? Well, it's because the tension that you put on it momentarily fixed it, but now it's heated up and cooled down and it's moved, and that tension on the wire is no longer there. So it's important that you do go in and double check in like your Falcons or you have some the Holiday Core, the Alpha Picks, and all those other ones, that you come in and you tighten these down. Now there's two ways to think about cutting the lines and putting them in here. First of all, most of these pigtails do come in with a soldered tip end, right, Ricky?
Yep.
And then for the most part, those do work and they work fine. The problem is that
as long as they're long enough. I was looking to see if I had one right here. I don't. But yeah, long as it has enough. Like if they're really short, I always just take my little things here and pop them and get them a little bit longer, because you want them things. I mean, not quite a quarter of an inch, but you want them relatively long. Otherwise, they won't grab well.
Right. And then the other thing is too, is that you want to strip the wire back enough, but not too far. You don't want them
Out
there, because if this wire gets twisted and there's a cross connection in the wire, you're going to blow something out on the controller, blow the string up, something can happen.
And when you push it in, really, if you push it in and they're hanging out, just take your flush cuts and just trim off like a 1/16 of an inch, and then put them back in, and then you're going to be good. So yeah, just trim the wire, just trim all three of them back at one time, shove them in, and then, like I said, I use my drill to tighten all my green connectors up.
Right, and that's exactly what Ricky taught me. He said you need to get the adapter and put this on like your screw gun or your 12-volt drill, and that way you won't be cranking all the time with your small screwdriver.
And you get them really tight too.
And
Like
you do.
they
And,
don't loosen
the,
up.
the other thing too is that you want to it's kind of nice instead of holding these with your fingers. If you are going to do it mechanically, hold it with some sort of channel lock whenever you're using a power tool to do it with, because the torque on this after doing 16 of these, you can feel it in your other hand, that's for sure. But
400.
so super important. You are welcome to strip the wire off, cut off of the solder points, and just go with bare copper. You
Okay.
totally can do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're welcome to do that, or you can try doing this. But if you leave the solder on, you do need to go back and you need to maintain these every once in a while and give these a good tighten just to make sure you have a good connection. Because the last thing you want to do is go change three pixels in your prop and realize it had nothing to do with your prop and it had everything to do with your wire connection inside the controller, and you'll want to smack yourself. The other thing is, whenever you're inside your controller, make sure these hold on a second. I'll grab the receiver and I'll demo this a little bit better. Make sure that these pins, whenever they're in here, is that they're seated fully. They lock into place. Sometimes people will just set them in there, but then they don't lock them into place by pushing them the whole way down. There's an audible click, and I'll try to not make any noise. You can actually hear the audible click that tells you that it's connected. If you only put them in so far and you just push down, and maybe the lights do work, and then all of a sudden they stop working, you might only have to go in and jiggle it and push it down, get it to snap in and to be seated 100%.
Oh, I got that out. Open that back up, Clyde.
Okay.
Another big issue is that power lug. All Falcons are like that. I have one actually right here too. That connector right here. Okay. A lot of times, if you've ever seen them where they've been on fire or you see them smoked up, it's always right here on a Falcon, and that's because those two don't get tightened up enough. That's a big one. That's more important than the little ones. What you do is you put a pair of pliers on them like he's doing. I use needle noses, any type of plier, because if you don't, they will twist. You'll rip them right off the board. And then, yeah, give them a good crank when you're holding it, because those loosen up more than anything on these. And then once that starts arcing, next thing you know, you've burnt the corner of your board off and it's no good.
Yep, and then you've ruined a controller, $200 down the drain, $250 down the drain. Tear it apart, put it back together, go buy another one, and it's like, so, like none of us like spending more money than we have to. It's a hobby, and we know that we're going to screw up. We know we're going to make mistakes, but there's unnecessary mistakes that we don't have to make. And I was going to show the exact same thing here. With this power supply, with this
Same idea. Yep. Grab them with a pair. I like needle noses. They seem to grab a little bit better.
And I like the slip locking ones here, like this.
Yep. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. I mean, even big side cutters will work. Anything just to hold that solid, and then grab a screwdriver and give them a good reef, and just make sure they're tight.
I got a good quarter turn out of that.
Yeah, because those do loosen up.
That tells me that I didn't do a good enough job. I could get a little bit more out of it. Oh, look at this one. This isn't even tight. Look at that. Like I got a whole turn out of that. So it's a good idea to go back and do this to your controllers and check these on an annual basis. If you have 30 controllers, you're not going to want to do it. So do it right one time and then give them a check every once in a while. I guarantee you the last thing you want is loose wires on your power inputs ever. Because just like Ricky said, there goes the edge of your board. There goes $200 in an investment in a controller, and the time to go build and rebuild it, tear it apart, and put it together again. Because taking all these out and I love these controllers, but push down on all these pins, take them all out, cut off all these little zip ties, because this is a nice, tight, packed, ready to go controller. The last thing I want to do is tear it apart and put it back together. So just I think a lot of the things that we talked about today may not be in everybody's purview. You're not thinking about this in the moment that you're setting up your show. You're thinking about this as you're kind of getting prepared. Whenever your season's on and you're having issues with different things, that's whenever you start seeing, well, if I'd have taken 10 minutes and I just checked, oh, here's my network cable. Did I check my network cable inside? If I connect my network here, if I power this on and I plug this in, is this going to, let's test it, because I haven't tested this controller yet. In fact, this is one that I put together relatively recently. And I did it in a Zoom room one night. So here's the Genius logo loading up. Does the IP address show up? It might not, because this is in a secluded network that's only connected to the back of the computer. So it's not going to load up. Oh, look, there it did. I guess maybe I did do it. But I bet you this has the original firmware, because there's no little screen there. Robert caught me the other day. He said, "You never updated the firmware in this Genius controller." And I said, how do you know that? And he says, "There's no thing to scan so that you can log into it wirelessly." And I was like, you can log into it wirelessly? And he says, yeah. He says, but you have to update the firmware. So in order to do that, you've got to get connected to the internet and update the firmware. So that's the next thing I want to talk about, is specifically with this controller, is let's see what we can do to get this connected to the network. So, well, I'm going to disconnect this one.
Yeah, I will say too, I have a bunch of these too sitting here. So the new, you guys have obviously seen the new Genius Pros. What's nice with these is he actually has the wire. It's soldered on, these big traces on the bottom. So you don't really have to worry about that connection. And I've never had a power supply actually loosen up. I mean, they have them teeth in the corners. So I mean, really with the Pro boards, it kind of really makes it nice. And the same with these lever things. As long as you have a good 1/4 inch of material down in there, I'll put them all in, shut them, and then I actually, same idea, is I'll give them a tug just to make sure they bite.
Yep.
Because I've had a couple of them where I didn't get them in enough. They go down to testing, and Zach's like, "Why don't you give them a little tug, and you'll see that they'll pull out because you didn't put it in far enough." So, just a little update on that. Make sure you give these a little tug.
And I think David said that he's updating the Genius boards to have only those connectors on them.
Yes, thank you, Jesus. Praise the Lord.
I could be wrong. I may be wrong. David might.
them little ones, my big old honking hands.
Well,
I struggled with them things. I built a whole pile of them, but I'm like, these things are horrible, David.
well, it looks like we have somebody requesting to be unmuted. I wonder if I can do that. Let's see. Can I ask him to unmute?
Hello.
Hi. I have answers to all your firmware questions here.
Okay. Well. If you want.
Put us on
what I want to do is I'm actually, this is a network connection into my home network, and I was going to update on screen this controller. So David, are you there?
I am here at the McFarland estate.
Fantastic. Would you like to walk us through this real quick? I wasn't expecting to do this, but since you're here, this looks like, so this is a 2022 board.
Yeah, and just to answer what you said earlier, yes, all of the 2024 Genius controllers and receivers have the new Cleverlock connection. So this year we went away with the spring connectors altogether because Ricky said that I was a jerk.
Well, at least we have an OLED. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It looks like it's got a wired IP address. Can I reset that?
He's asking you. Sorry, what'd you say?
It has a wired IP address. Hold on a second. Let me connect it to the computer network here real quick. Give me a second, and because I have it on the outside of the board.
So is this a fresh?
This I'm not sure. Let's. I'm gonna bring it up on the screen here in just a second. I'll share my screen. Number 4, and let me grab and.
Oh man, if I had advance notice, I would have given you the super secret new firmware update that's coming here in a couple days.
I don't think that's quite necessary. 192.168.1.144 now. I know it's not on your screen, but you can't. I got it here.
Does this new secret update help you put your props out for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And connect everything up.
Magic.
Ooh, there's
There we go. Okay, so here it is. We want to go to update, right? Oh, it is. It is updated. Okay. So we did do the update on this. I guess we don't need to update it.
Yep.
So
Yeah. So, yeah, you're up to date.
so what happened was the original firmware for the first run boards that everybody received, it was a 1.0.1. Is that right? Firmware.
I don't remember the exact number, but that sounds about right. Yeah.
Right. And so
Why is your web browser blue though?
it is what it is.
Okay.
Do you want a different color? You want pink?
No, I didn't know. I've never seen that before. So
Blue for boys, buddy. Blue for boys.
okay.
Pink for girls. But anyway, one of the things that we were sitting out we weren't sitting out there. We were standing in my garage, and Robert said, "Hey, we need to connect wirelessly to this thing. You should be able to get onto your phone. It should be you should be able to connect to it." And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And we realized that the controller that that I had sitting on the back end of my truck, because the Genius 32 was out of commission, and I just wanted to test lights. That's all I wanted to do, test the outputs. And Rob's like, no, that firmware is not updated. So it is important on some controllers that you do update your firmware to a point where they are working to where they're working, and they're working with a reasonably good set of software, so that whenever you're outputting to lights, everything's doing what it should be doing. David, since you're here, maybe you can answer this real quick. The idea for there's always here and there's updates to firmware and different reasons for it. Can you give me an idea why firmware might have gotten updated?
I mean, the biggest reason, the most frequent reason is customer feedback, right? So certainly bugs. Russ and I were just talking about this today. Is there's only so much you can test from the bench until there's a lot of big difference between the bench and the yard. So customers use it. They have unique use cases, things we haven't experienced before. So lots of bug fixes, certainly.
So so can you I want to be specific now. What kind of bug fixes have in this super secret one that?
Yeah. No, it's not.
Give me an idea of what.
I've talked about a lot of these already, but two of the bigger ones are the color order. So for 4-channel pixels, if the white channel was first, so WRGB, Genius was not doing the correct ordering of the outputs. So that's been resolved. Another one was gamma. Only 3.0 is working. The other ones weren't. Again, it was another offset issue. A bigger one that I'm surprised wasn't a larger issue last year, but if you had long-range controllers configured long-range receivers configured, and some of the ports had 0 pixels on them, it would sometimes create issues downstream where it didn't think that it was daisy-chained long-range receivers. It thought that it was dumb data. So that's been resolved. So things like that, different scenarios, different combinations can create use cases that haven't been tested, right? So.
Right. So the next thing that I would say is whenever it comes to somebody who's putting their controllers out, they're not using, let's say they're not using those specific 4-channel pixels, they're using the 3-channel pixels. Is it always necessary to update your firmware? When is it necessary to update your firmware? I guess.
Well, I always tell people if your show is working, don't update your firmware. If everything's working to what you expect, there's no reason to update. There might be some new features that you think are cool and you want to try them out. That's fine, but do that on a box that's not mission critical to your show. Every update is a risk, right? No matter how much it's been tested, every single update is a risk, and you don't want to do that to a show that's currently up and running and working. You want to leave it and do your testing in the off season or at the bench.
All right. David, thank you very much. That was a nice surprise. I certainly didn't expect you to be here, but it was very nice that you are here and you could fill in some of the blanks for us.
And Russell,
And
Yeah,
Russell. Well, if it wasn't for Russell, none of us would be here.
that's true.
It's true. Russell is the man.
He certainly is. He certainly is. So, all right. I really don't. If you guys have anything in chat you want to throw in chat and talk about, we'll go ahead and we're going to move on to the rest of the evening. Ricky, anything you want to follow up with? Anything that we didn't talk about? I think I hit all of the bullet points that I wanted to hit, but you know, I asked you to be here, and you certainly filled in a whole lot for us. So.
No, I think you pretty much nailed it out. So it's just really just putting your eyes on your controllers, putting a screwdriver on your connectors, and you know, just making sure you don't got corrosion in your pigtails, and corrosion in your Ethernet ports, and have a spare. That's a big one.
So have a backup plan. That's huge.
Oh, here's yeah, and don't leave your controller door open after you make some changes because you planned on going back out there. You would not believe the controllers that I get back that have seen 4 inches of water in the bottom of them.
Mhm. You wouldn't believe the number of controllers though that actually still work after they've dried out.
Oh yeah, they'll dry, but you got time for that? Your show goes in 4 hours. Now it just rained on it all day.
So yeah,
But
that's
yeah, we dried them out. I've seen them. They'll come back as long as they weren't powered.
they may not. That happened to my first F48. I left it wide open, went back in the house, forgot. Damn it, I need to go out there. And the next thing you know, the next night I go out there and I'm like, man, the whole roof is out. The entire roof ran off of the F48. I learned my lesson that year. Thank God I had a spare. This spare F48 happened to be the one that we just saw that now no longer works tonight. So my other spare F48, which I haven't used an F48 in a while, because I prefer 16 output controllers. Now I have one if I need it, but in any event, I hope tonight was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments or the chat down below. We're going to end it here. And we'll go into our after I don't want to call it after hours, but after our after class session where we get to BS and hang out and discuss things and answer questions on what you're going through in the hobby and trying to get set up. And so guys, thank you for joining us, Robert. Thank you for getting all of this out there to everybody. If you're on Facebook, huge thank you for watching. Like the video, please. If you found the information helpful, share it with other people. Definitely, especially this time of year. I really thought that that this was going to be a great topic. One more thing that I will say before I get out of here is I think everybody in 2 weeks really needs to show up in the PPD Zoom room. We're going to have a very interesting coming together evening, and it's going to be very interesting. I have a very special night planned now. Of all nights, this is on election night, and if you're into the election, go watch the election. If you're tired of it, if you're tired of seeing all the commercials, we're not going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about Christmas lights, and we're going to do it in a very interesting discussion. There's more information to come, so that's 2 weeks from now, and we hope to see you guys there. So, guys, thank you, Ricky. Thank you.
Red bulbs and blue bulbs.
Red bulbs and blue bulbs. So guys, thank you for joining us. Ricky, thank you very much. It means a lot to me. I know this was kind of a last minute thing for you, but I really wanted to I wanted to address the situation. Like I have issues or challenges coming up with new things to talk about every week or every other week and do for these videos, but I find that my own experiences tell me exactly the things that I should share with you guys. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope it save you a little bit of time, frustration, and hopefully a lot of money by not blowing up your controllers and doing stupid things and having them running good. So guys, that's everything for me. Thank you very much. Robert, thank you. Ricky, thank you guys. Have a great evening. We'll see you next time, and goodbye for now.